Okay, today we're going to set up 2 pages on CQG integrated client. I'll show you how to set up the charts as well as a few little tricks in using them. The first page we'll set up is what we might call a general macro market page. That is a page that covers all the major futures markets. The second page we're going to set up in a few minutes will be a fixed interest only page, specifically for trading the Australian and the US markets. Now, to start with our macro page, what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is come up here to quote and select last net change. This is a cool little display window which will resize. I'll show you what this one does in a second to a 3x5 window. Now each of these little squares can quote a specific market. So for our macro page, we'll just type in a few different markets. EP for E-mini, TYA for the US T-note, HXS for the Aussie bonds. Before we go any further, what this does is show you each the last trade for each maturity as well as the net change on the day. So there's not too many maturities available here for the fixed interest, but you can see in other markets they'll have maturities a few months out. A few other markets: CLE for crude, HOE for heating oil, RBE for gasoline. Probably don't need that level of depth, but we'll look at it anyway. A couple of currencies: DA6, EU6. Might throw in a natural gas in there as well. It's an interesting one to watch. A couple of commodities, some metals: GCE for gold, SIE for silver, PLE for platinum, and perhaps just a couple of other commodities too: ZCE is corn, ZSE soybean, ZWA is wheat. So that gives us a broad commodity overview. What we're going to do now is set up charts for these ones as well. So the first thing to do is come up here, again select our last change window, double click on the chart we want to create, and the chart just pops up magically. So what we'll do is just resize it to about there. Now this is a cool little thing on CQG. Rather than continue to create new charts, what we're going to do is click replicate. What that does is create a chart exactly the same size as the one we just created. Funny that. We'll go over here and we'll create a few more. Replicate, replicate, replicate. So we'll just create a grid of charts here, and what we're going to do, you guessed it, is create charts for each of those markets that's in this last net change window here. We'll create charts for each of them in the rest of the page. Now at the moment we're replicating the E-mini, but we'll change that in a second, and I'll show you a quick way of doing that rather than typing out all the codes again. So let's just leave it at that, a 3x3 chart for the moment. So we've got E-mini over here. Over on this one here, we want to have the T-note. So what we do is select that chart, go back to net change, select that window, and double click specifically on the contract that we want. In this case, it's going to be September 13. Again, select the chart. We go over here to our Aussie 10s, double click on September, and September pops up. Again, select chart, double click on crude oil, select chart, select last net change, double click heating oil, and keep going for all of these. Aussie dollar, euro, what else have we got here? Let's just throw in a gold just for fun. Okay. Now that gives us a general market overview. You can put up more charts if you have a screen big enough to fit it. Generally speaking, on a 27-inch screen, you might have as many as 16 charts that you can kind of see easily. So that sets up our page anyway. You want to save that. But one cool trick that I use for this type of display, in fact, what we might do is just fill it out a little bit more. Put in a right there, maybe put in soybeans. Okay, one cool trick here, what this has created is a 30-minute chart for each of these. Now if you want to change these to a 5-minute or a daily or a weekly or whatever you want to look at, you can go through each and every one of them and type in comma D, creates a daily chart, comma D creates a daily chart, and you have to go through that with every one of your charts each time you want to change the time frame. A cool trick that CQG has is if, let's say we're changing back to a 15-minute chart, we select one of the charts, comma, type in comma 15, and instead of hitting enter, you hit Control Enter, and that'll change all the charts together. I find that a fantastic feature and saves a lot of time and stops all your charts from getting quite messy. So that's a general market overview page. What we're going to do next is look at specifically a fixed interest trading page. Next up is our fixed interest screen, specifically for trading the US Treasuries and the Australian bonds. We'll start again with one of these last net change windows. It doesn't need to be so big this time, so we'll just have, bring it over here, we'll have first of all the US yield curve. We've got USA for the 30, TYA for the 10s, and FEA for the 3s. We'll put in the Aussie market now, which is HTS and HXS for the 3s and the 10s. We'll leave that one blank for the moment. We'll go back and put in a couple of currencies, and we'll leave it at that, DA6, EU6. Just for good measure, we'll put in a E-mini. And you can add any other markets that you want to look at there, but we'll just leave it at that for the moment. Now what we'll do now is put up a couple of charts for each of these, and also display the ladders for these, and also a couple of spread charts as well. So first of all, let's just start with the Treasuries. Chart for the Treasuries, we're going to make it a 30-minute chart. Replicate him, our little replicate trick. USA, let's put the long bond up there, as they call it. HTS for the 3s, Aussie 3s, HXS for the Aussie 10s. Now we have a bit of spare space here, so what we're going to do is add a couple of spread charts. Probably don't need them to be so big, so we'll actually, so they're the same size, we'll do that, replicate, brings up a chart the same size. Now I'll come back to the codes for those in a minute. We'll also put up a couple of DOM traders. So here we've got HXS rather. Again, replicate, and we'll do a TYA there as well. The good thing about this display is that they have little tabs in them, so you can put little markets in there, other markets in there that you want to look at. So we could, for example, have a FEA, add a tab, TYA, and long bond USA. So we can have the 5s, 10s and 30s in the US on one tab, and here, get rid of that one, put HTS. So then we have the 3s and the 10s on that tab. So that's pretty cool, that display that way. Now getting back to these ones, what we're going to do here is create a spread, the spread chart of the Aussie 10s versus the US T-note. Because they're quoted differently, we can't just take one minus the other. It's not as simple as that, as it might be with other markets that are quoted in dollars or points or whatever. So going back to your bond book, which you've received, your bond market fundamentals book, we have the code for the spread, a little formula that we've created ourselves for the spread, which I'll just type in here. Not working. No, what we've got is open bracket HXS minus open bracket TYA times reciprocal of the DV01 times 77, oops, it's minus 77, minus 77. there's our spread chart. So we'll look at that, we'll squeeze that into a 5-minute chart, and squeeze it up there, like that. Get rid of that. Put this one up here, put another one up here, perhaps a daily chart to give you a longer term perspective. Comma D is your daily. And so that's the general layout for a fixed interest market. You can resize these things to fit your screen and so on. And if you have any extra space, put some other charts up there. I'd suggest a euro and an Aussie dollar. It's probably a good one to display on fixed interest.